The reason why we have called this press conference today is that, as we all remember, in October 2021, the central bank made a regulation saying that within 180 days, export sector has to repatriate all its residual income. Despite the fact that central bank making this regulation in October 2021, we found out last year that the export sector has not been repatriating its residual income, and it became a huge issue, particularly because we defaulted on our debt. So after a group of trade unions, including all of us present here, after we made it an issue, suddenly in December last year, the central bank came out and said for 2 months, that is for October and November, the export sector has in fact repatriated its residual income. And the reason why the numbers were not telling is because they had to pay off some of their local suppliers and they had to import fuel in dollars. Of course, in the statement we are releasing, we have dealt with all those numbers, and we have shown how those numbers don't really tally, and whether the export sector, particularly the garment sector, whether they are using that amount of fuel. But the question which I want to ask in this press is that if in fact they have repatriated their profits in October and November, then what happened to the other 10 months or other 11 months or other 9 months of the year? We want answers. What happened to the profits which were not repatriated in those 9 months? So the central bank can't be coming and blowing hot and cold. And the reason I say this is because the government is telling us that we don't have money to settle our debt, so that we need to sell our national assets, the Ceylon Electricity Board, the Sri Lanka Insurance, the Sri Lanka Telecom. And the total of that would come to around $3 billion. And we need to sell that in order to meet the debt demand, which is around a little more than $50 billion US. So we are selling all of our national assets for $3 billion US, while our debt we defaulted is $50 billion, and while our export sector has, we don't know what happened to the 9-10 months which they have not repatriated their export proceeds. And while all of this was happening, last year the Global Financial Integrity report came out where they said that between the period of 2008 to 2019, $40 billion US have left this country through misinvoicing by export and import sector. Basically, it's corporate fraud. So they have come out and said this, but after they came out and said this, Mr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa came and said, no, it's not $40 billion US, it's in fact $53 billion US which has left our country. So the obvious question which we want to raise is that you sell all of our national assets. You sell all of our national assets for $3 billion US to resolve a $50 billion debt issue. And here you have our private sector acting fraudulently and literally taking $53 billion, it's even more, it's on a conservative estimate, out of this country, and you do nothing about it. And then every time we ask you, why aren't you investing in agriculture? Why aren't you investing in fisheries? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you investing in people of this country? People are losing jobs as we speak. So when we ask this question, you say, the president comes and says, he pretends as if he's speaking the truth, and he says, no, we don't have money. But it's very obvious that the problem is not that we don't have money. The problem is the political class, the Rajapaksas and now Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe backing them up, as well as the business elite, is taking money out of this country, stealing money out of this country and defrauding our country. And our political sector, the political elite of this country, which is headed by Mr. Wickremesinghe, is not doing anything to hold this business leadership, this private sector, which our country's economy runs on, which are workers. They do overtime, they lose sleep, they're not eating. The dollars which our workers earned are being stolen by the business elite of this country, and our government is not doing anything about it. And while all of this happening, yesterday you saw how the Bureau of Rehabilitation, the Center for the Bureau of Rehabilitation bill, and now an act was passed, with only around 30 members present in Parliament, in a Parliament consisting of 225 persons. So we are paying taxpayers' money to keep 225 people, and only 30 people turn up to vote for such a crucial bill. Only 30 people turn up to vote. And you have money to set up the Bureau of Rehab, you have money to set up rehabilitation centers, you have money to crush dissent, which is coming because people are starving on the street, but you don't have the guts, you don't have the political will to question the business sector as to why they are defrauding the money, to question the Rajapaksas, which the United Nations have called it a financial crime or an economic crime, and you don't have the guts to question that. So this is what we are asking in this press today. We are saying our country, 183 economists have signed a statement and said, this country is not in debt, it was robbed. That is what they were saying. They have been asking for debt forgiveness. They have been saying that that our debt is odious debt and this debt ought to be cancelled. And the economic advisors to Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe comes and critiques the statement. International economists are coming and saying we need to be forgiven on our debt, not forgiven, our debt has to be cancelled. International economists are coming and saying, and our economists are saying, no, we don't want to be, our debt should not be cancelled, we need to restructure it. So we see whose interest is at play here. So that is what we are coming here as trade unions, we are sitting here today, and we are demanding that the parliament forms a select committee to look into this, to look into the defrauding or the fraud which has been happening in the business sector, and to come up with the report, to make it public as to how the export and import sector has been misinvoicing $53 billion according to Mr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, and not a single action has been taken against them until today. Thank you.
The News Reporter. වාරණයෙන් තොර අපක්ෂපාතී වාර්තාකරණය.